He didn't say anything remarkable. No compliment, no promise, no dramatic declaration. And yet, weeks later, she still found herself thinking about him while washing dishes, while driving home, while lying awake at night staring at the ceiling, not because of what he did, because of what hadn't rushed past. That's where this begins. Because most people believe being remembered is about standing out, being impressive, being confident, being unforgettable. But intimacy doesn't remember volume. It remembers resonance. And resonance is created in the quiet moments most people miss. You don't linger in someone's mind because you spoke beautifully. You linger because you touched something they didn't know how to name. Let that sink in. You've lived long enough to know that attraction changes with time. In your 20s, desire is loud. In your 30s, it's strategic. But in your 40s, 50s, and 60s, desire becomes selective. It asks different questions. Not are you exciting, but are you safe with my truth? Not do you want me, but can you stay when I show you who I really am? And most people fail that test without ever realizing it. They talk too much, they fix too quickly, they feel silence because stillness scares them. But the moments that echo are the ones where someone finally feels met. Let me take you into a real moment. A woman sits across from a man she barely knows. They're not young, they're not pretending they have endless time. They're careful, curious, a little guarded. She shares something small, not dramatic, just a quiet truth about her day, her hesitation, her doubt. Most men respond with advice or reassurance or humor. They think conversation is about momentum. But this man pauses. He looks at her, not to assess, not to impress, but probe with her. And he says 3 words, 3 simple words. And something shifts. Her body relaxes. Her voice changes. Her mind stays. That's how people enter your thoughts and don't leave. Not through intensity, through attunement. Let that sink in. The truth is uncomfortable but honest. Women don't think nonstop about men who chase them. They think nonstop about men who understand the moment they're in. Because attention is everywhere, but presence is rare, especially after years of marriage, compromise, disappointment, and emotional neglect. Especially after learning to be strong instead of seen. So let's talk about the 3 words, not as a trick, not as manipulation, but as a doorway. Because if you say them without understanding, they will fall flat. And if you understand them deeply, you won't even need to say them often. The first word is this: I notice. Not I like, not I agree, not I get it. I notice. When you say I notice, you're saying something radical in a distracted world. You're saying, I was here with you. I wasn't planning my response. I wasn't waiting to speak. I didn't leave the moment emotionally. I noticed how your voice softened when you said that. I noticed you smiled, but something in you held back. I noticed you paused, like you weren't sure it was safe to say more. This word does something profound. It slows time. Most people are heard. Very few are noticed. And being noticed doesn't feel flattering. It feels intimate. It tells her she exists beyond her usefulness, beyond her charm, beyond her appearance. It tells her you're paying attention to who she is, not just what she offers. Let that sink in. Now here's the part most men miss. I noticed is not observation as analysis. It's observation as care. You're not diagnosing her. You're acknowledging her experience. And that distinction matters. Because women have spent much of their lives being evaluated at work, at home, in relationships. Being noticed without being judged is rare, and rarity lingers. The second word is even more powerful. It makes sense. These 3 words heal something most people don't even realize is wounded, because so many women have spent years being subtly told that their reactions are excessive, irrational, inconvenient, too emotional, too sensitive, too complex. When you say it makes sense, you're not agreeing with everything she feels. You're validating her inner logic. You're saying, given your story, your feelings are understandable. I respect the path that brought you here. I'm not here to correct you. And this is where many men struggle. They've been trained to fix, not to validate, to solve, not to seat. But validation is not weakness. Validation is emotional strength. Let that sink in. When you say it makes sense, something subtle happens. Her nervous system relaxes. Her defenses soften. Her mind stops bracing because she's not being challenged to justify herself. She's being allowed to exist, and that permission is intoxicating. Not because it flatters her, but because it frees her. Now here comes the unexpected truth. She won't replay your words later because they were clever. She'll replay them because of how she felt after them. Calmer, more grounded, less alone. And emotions remembered are emotions repeated. The third word is the most dangerous and the most beautiful. Stay, not as a command, not as a plea, as an invitation. Stay with that thought. Stay here for a moment. Stay as you are. This word carries weight because of what it implies. It says, I'm not rushing you. I'm not uncomfortable with depth. I'm not leaving when things slow down. And this is where the emotional history of many women awakens, because many have experienced men who left emotionally long before they left physically, men who withdrew when vulnerability appeared, men who went quiet when emotions deepened, men who distracted themselves when intimacy required presence. Stay breaks that pattern. Let that sink in. When you say stay, you're not asking her to remain. You're showing you are remaining. And that's rare. Most people leave internally the moment things get real. Silence makes them nervous. Emotion makes them defensive. Stillness makes them restless. But intimacy lives in stillness. Now let me tell you the twist most people don't expect. These three words are not about her. They're about you. They reveal your capacity to be present, to tolerate emotion, to stay without needing control. That's why they're powerful. Because when you say them authentically, you are not performing. You are revealing yourself. And here is the uncomfortable truth. If you cannot say these words sincerely, it's not because you lack charm. It's because you haven't. Practice being emotionally still with another human being. Many men were taught to lead, provide, endure, and protect, not to notice, not to validate, not to stay. So when you say these words, you're not just connecting with her. You're undoing years of emotional conditioning. And she feels that. Let that sink in. Now, imagine how this plays out in real life. She tells you something vulnerable about her marriage that quietly died, about her loneliness in a room full of people, about the part of her that learned to stop asking for more. Instead of fixing, you say, I noticed how careful you were when you said that. She feels seen. Then you say, it makes sense given what you've lived through. She exhales. And then softly, stay with it, I'm here. That moment will follow her home, not because you promised anything, but because you didn't disappear. And here's the deeper psychological truth. People don't think nonstop about those who impress them. They think nonstop about those who make them feel real. Seen without being exposed, validated without being diminished, met without being rushed. That combination creates emotional imprinting. And emotional imprints last, especially in a world where attention is shallow and connection is rushed. Now, let me speak directly to you. If you're listening to this, you are not young, you are not naive, you have lived, you have loved imperfectly, you have regretted silently, you have learned how to survive, but survival is not intimacy, and many men mistake endurance for depth. They stay physically present but emotionally absent. They offer stability but withhold curiosity. They give solutions but avoid presence, and then they wonder why connection fades. Let that sink in. These three words are not romantic lines. They are relational skills. They require courage because presence exposes you. Validation requires humility. Staying requires emotional strength. And here is the quiet climax of this truth. When you say these words, you are no longer trying to be remembered. You are allowing yourself to be felt. And being felt is unforgettable. Now let me leave you with something bittersweet. You can say these words and she may still leave. Life is unpredictable. Timing is imperfect. People are complicated. But you will not regret showing up fully. Because even if she doesn't stay, you will. You will know that you didn't abandon yourself to be desired. You didn't perform to be chosen. You didn't disappear to be liked. You were present. You were grounded. You stayed. and that changes you. And the men who change internally are the ones who create C. On actions externally. So if you want to live in someone's thoughts, don't aim to be impressive. Aim to be present. Notice. Validate. Stay. And whether she thinks about you nonstop or not, something far more important will happen. You will begin to experience relationships differently, with depth, with calm, with emotional clarity, and that is where real attraction begins. Let that sink in.